Hello, welcome back to the JRB podcast with myself, Ryan Levine, joined here by Jeff Jones and Bohdan Temnick.
Hello.
So today, we will be going over Supreme Darkness, as we said last time. I guess before we start, just one little quick non-Yu-Gi-Oh announcement.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Also, that's a good second. Two non-Yu-Gi-Oh announcements. Just this week, I did a video on the new Universes set for soul leveling. So I know a couple of the IPs recently probably haven't been haven't like overlapped with the interests of Yu-Gi-Oh players, but I think soul leveling has just been a pretty popular show recently. Season 2 just came back. If you enjoy that, I've got a video opening the new deck, and then in the description of that video, I actually have a video I linked where I played a full match with it. So we played like pretty slowly, so if you're just getting into the game or just wanting to like see how it works, it's pretty easy to follow because and it's very long because we were not playing quickly because they were all new cards and we had to read everything, but you can skim through it and whatever, and it's kind of interesting. So without further ado, Supreme Darkness, and I guess we can do, like, before we jump into it, like a quick overview of how like the meta has developed since our last episode. So the last episode was like right after the YCS, right? So Fiendsmith Ryziel was definitely known because it won, but I don't think it was like optimized. And now I think people have just like really, really ironed out like almost all of the flaws or any of the inconsistencies between them. And then now we're seeing the emergence of like this bestial Fiendsmith Ryziel deck where it plays Lubellion, a big bestial package between like 5 to 7 bestials and Branded Regained, and like...
And even if they're not playing the heavy bestial engine, a lot of them are still playing like Magnamut 3 Jewess Worm.
Yeah. Some, because which we'll get to Magnamut, I guess. But yeah, what do you think about that? Like, do you think the format has developed to be in a, I don't know if I want to say like a better point, but do you, from the matches that you've played or matches that you've seen, do you like this more than like the Pasadena form or Anaheim? What city was it in? Whatever, the Cali YCS.
California.
Yeah.
I hope everyone in California is safe.
Yeah. Oh yes. We're right in the middle of large forest fires in California. Hopefully everybody is doing all right. But yeah, do you like this format like better, or did you like it better when everybody was playing like the pure decks? Like, do you think the Fiendsmith cards are more interesting, or did you like it better before?
So I think it's really hard because the Fiendsmith cards themselves are just too fucking good.
Sure.
It's I think maybe from like a gameplay standpoint, for a lot of people, it probably feels better because your deck doesn't feel very weak because your deck is filled with, well, specifically referencing the
Ryziel, even
cards,
Malice, right? I feel like Malice can also feel the same way, to be honest.
More so Ryziel, because Ryziel just is filled with so many different one-card starters and just so many hand traps. It's just when playing that deck, people probably think, hey, this feels pretty good. And if you know how to like sequence your interactions correctly, you're probably rewarded pretty well. My major issue is probably the same with, I think this format would be really good if Dimensional Barrier and Lancia did not exist. If those cards did not exist, I would think this would be like probably seen, like looked back upon years from now as like a format people loved and would go back and play. But I think those cards, like the side deck cards just completely ruin it. Like there's a lot of non-gamers, like even like with the Fiendsmith cards in like the Ryziel deck, if your opponent goes first and sets up like a medium board and you get Dimensional Barrier, then I don't think the Fiendsmith cards are enough to most of the time to do anything.
So yeah, like just Fiendsmith on its own is not going to crack a board through barrier, right? Like very rarely.
And even if you do, like you're not setting up a field that can like contest what they play next turn.
Yeah.
So
you have to hope that it's a barrier that's been taken off like thrust and you've hand trapped them enough, right? Where it's like they have a very scuffed end board, and like you get to get carried by like a Chaos Angel or something, right? Like that's
Wait, that card
the
is a
real
whole
crux of it.
other like
Yeah.
that one. Oh boy, I don't even know where to begin on that one. I have watched so many games just be like 2 Chaos Angels in defense mode and nobody has an out to it, to the point that like it's almost becoming like Mystic Mine-esque in my opinion. Like I've seen so many games just be
no
cards,
way.
chaos.
I think that's just like not comparable, and it's more just people not knowing what to do. Granted, I haven't played
these decks,
a lot of the format, but surely there's just a way to answer a Chaos Angel.
Well, no, in the Rizal deck, there's not. I've still been playing Malice. I've been playing the Skyscraper Malice deck. I think it's incredibly powerful. I really, really like it. I feel really good into all my matches, except for obviously Lancia. I think if Lancia wasn't a card, again, like you'd see a lot more interesting gameplay. But my opponents have summoned Chaos Angel, and I'm just like, okay, my deck has an engine out to that card. So it's specifically just the Rizal deck, like the Rizal Mirror, where you just do not have an out to that card outside of Imperm.
Yeah. It's literally Imperm, and people, and if like you side in judgments like post side to answer Imperm and stuff like that, and it's like the only like in-engine card that you could do, because this came up for me at the YCS, is I was playing the pure deck, so I just had Hole Thruster in my deck, and in matchups, like I played like 3 or 4 of like the Kashtira Fiendsmith decks, and just like if my opponent was playing a Fiendsmith variant, I didn't side out Hole Thruster even going second, because I was like, I really need a searchable out to Chaos Angel. Like, and it came up multiple times where just like game 2 going second, you know, we were in a pretty simplified game state. My opponent just has a Chaos Angel, and I'm like, well, I can make 1 rank 4, dual drive, search, set Hole Thruster, and they're like, oh. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm glad this came up, I guess. But I don't think, like, now we're back. So when I mentioned, like, Mystic Mine-esque territory, I think we're back, and, like, that is probably the only, like, reasonable in-engine out.
Not doing, like Metal Tronus Droplet or something in the pure builds? Like, that was something... So
you could do Underworld Goddess, too.
I only just started playing, like current very recently, so I'm getting like back to speed with a lot of like the tech choices, but obviously I was around, you know. But I don't understand how Chaos Angel is like that difficult to deal with when people are just taking this board breaker approach anyway, right? It's like obviously not the Rizal decks don't like all take that, but I'm still seeing cards like Droplet, Tronus, Eclipse, like
I see Tronus in side decks. Mostly all these decks from like the past 2 weeks of 2 regionals are all honestly like pretty close to the same. It is all basically.
I just see Fiendsmith, like Rizal, like very
Fiendsmith,
standard,
and then it's like 3 Fua, 3 Ash, 3 Valor, 3 Imperm, some amount of Bestials, and that's it. That's the entire deck, and then Rizal cards.
I've seen some people cutting Ogres for Bell because they value stopping their opponent's Bestial more than they value like stopping, because realistically, everyone has cut like when Duo Drive in the pure deck is searching the field spell and plugin, or field spell and trap. It's like that is a lot of interactions just off one card. When it's searching field spell and like a follow up, answering it is still obviously like good, but maybe people have been like, well, I don't instantly lose when Duo Drive. Like Duo Drive is not the stop Duo Drive instantly win, let Duo Drive resolve instantly lose type card that it is in the pure deck. So I think people have been like maybe skewing away from the cards that only answer Duo Drive, especially because we can talk about this. People have been cutting Duo Drive entirely, which is wild. I didn't think that would be a development, but like we've seen a bunch of lists from the regionals the past couple weeks just be like, yep, top 8 of this regional didn't play Duo Drive, and I'm like, okay, like sure, like because that's how you punish the deck building. Like when the deck building a couple weeks ago was like kill Duo Drive, like that's all they're doing, and then you just go like detonator. It's like
right? I think spots like this, and if we backtrack a bunch of different formats that feel kind of similar, I think you can look at Kashtira and then you can look at Zodiac, where it's almost comparable but like a different sort of dimension, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like Zodiac was more, okay, we have to protect this Trident, but at the same time, like, how can we protect our normal summon? Like, how are we playing back with that? And then you had the same sort of issue with, like, Cash, except in cash format we had more like steel cards, like we didn't have talents and thrust and stuff like that in zoo format, so it's all just like
You cut out
Oh.
there.
Oh, apologies, I got a phone call.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like we sort of like the power creep has sort of dictated like how we build our end board and like how resilient it can be, and like all of these cards exist. It just feels like we're sort of like we're going back to the past, but in the current technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It just does. What it feels like on the surface. Like this is the exact same thing that we had to deal with, in 2017, but different. It feels kind of cool.
I mean,
it's fun to adapt stuff like that.
Because we mentioned that when we played the Kashtira deck, right? Is we were like, wow, we're putting Book of Moon and Econ and Lance in our deck. Like this is like we're just these like Fenrir is just a Zodiac monster. You could spell summon, haha. Like, and then something that I've seen.
I need to say something because we're on the topic of that of that duo drive thing. So because I am the only one of us who is actively playing, something that you guys probably don't know is with this deck, a big reason to cut duo drive is not just because like everyone's focused on stopping duo drive, but it's because the deck cannot actually physically make it. And this is because what the play it does when you like its main play is like normal summon Ice, right? And then Ice will summon a guy, search, and then you go into Exciton, and then go into your Fiendsmith stuff, and then all the Fiendsmith stuff makes a DDD Wave King, and then your next play is to make a rank 4, and if that rank 4 is duo drive and gets stopped, you have no way to actually make detonator. Whereas when in the pure deck, you actually did. In this one, you cannot do it. So they're just omitting making duo drive because you have no way to make detonator if it gets stopped.
Yeah, because you have to go into Ext and then have sword instead of the
right. If you
other way,
you have to go into duo drive and have it resolve and search yourself a node. It would search like node field spell, and then node would make the detonator. But since that just does not happen because you're going to get Veil or Impermed or Ash on duo drive, you then just pass with basically nothing. So that's more so why than like trying to like metagame the opponent and just saying, well, it's just going to get hand trapped anyway, so let's not make it. It actually just can't make it if it gets hand trapped at all.
Yeah,
so
unless you just hard drew.
It just skips.
I guess it also comes down to like how impactful the cards that you're searching off the duo drive are. Like you see a lot of people cutting cross. Well, obviously cutting duo drive is something that happens, and then cross is just there, because why would you play a one-of non-searchable, right? But it's like that's a card that you generally don't want to draw when your opponent has hand traps because your hand is now 4 cards. It's like similar sort of theory, right?
Yeah.
Like it'll all branch off from each other to be like, okay, well, Jeff's reason here, and then it's like, well, we also get to cut a bad card from our deck that doesn't, contribute.
If my opponent hard opens cross, I'm gonna fuck it. I get really pissed about that. make a rank 4 play cross. I'm like, really? Because they're always gonna make a rank 4. It's like their deck is it's just like 10 one card rank 4. So it's just like they don't even have to make the duo drive.
That was like the other discussion that I saw people having, where it's like, well, what do you do now if they don't make duo drive at all? It's like, are you meant to just hand trap like? If they normal summon the names escape me, but they normal summon the little guy. It's like, are you meant to just interact with Ice now and then?
Well, people were already interacting with Ice because if you don't interact with Ice, then they just go into the Fiendsmith stuff. Yeah, so right? It's already it's and I think this goes back to what I was talking about, where it's like this, like people probably do like playing this deck because it's tough, right? Like it's really tough to interact with correctly, and a lot of it is like probably if we play this format for like a year, right, and just like somehow there's no new cards come out and no ban list for like literally a year, and everyone's just played 500 games of this format, I'm sure people would get much better at identifying like the correct points to use their interactions based on what they have and what their hand is. But like I don't think we're there yet, and I think when somebody normal summons Ice, it is a toss-up what their opponent decides to do, right?
Very
like, could do literally anything. They're like, because I think there are a lot of intricacies in like, if you have a Bistral, maybe you don't imperm Ice, right? Like maybe you have to, because I guess Imperm specifically, maybe you have to, because if you Bistral, you can't Imperm.
Yeah, because you can't.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's like you have Valor, and it's
I think you also have the argument for like a card like Imperm, you might just keep in your hand and then play on your turn as well.
Yeah, for
right?
Detonator, because
there are also people like who are going this heavier Bestial route, choosing to like forego maxing out on Imperm because of stuff like that. Yeah. Because you're forced to like put cards on the field, and it makes Imperm like way worse of an interaction. So
how long will it be until we circle that back around and now we have Kashtiras in our deck too?
I was really thinking that today. I was literally thinking today. I was like, wow, am I about to?
Well,
like,
my concern about the Kashtira cards is, again, if I'm playing Bestials, like I've resolved the Bestial, I now have a Bestial, I want to die.
You're right.
But
yeah, I saw this
like,
deck
again. Obviously, first world problem, right? It's like you resolved a Bestial, it probably stopped your opponent from doing something impactful, but you had Kashtira cards in your deck. Whoops.
Yeah, I looked at this deck with like 10 Bestials in it today, and I was like, wow, do I just play like a really big Kashtira engine deck and just not care about this? And they have to activate so many things, and they're skimping out on things on their extra deck now, right? If they it's only 2 Detonator, like 1 Duo Drive, if that.
Maybe they have no Duo Drive.
So someone correct me if I'm wrong, because again, like I'm still exploring all of this stuff. It's really fun, by the way. Like I like these. I think these cards are really, really cool. But what I noticed initial thoughts, I've just been playing at locals, right? And obviously not everyone has like a full power Fiendsmith Ryzel deck. It'll be like some people will have it, some people won't. But you'll see a lot more like mono Ryzel, right? That's why I sort of bring it up. And it seems to me like that plus Malice, if you're not playing the Fiendsmith cards, you are kind of just not dead to Nib, but it feels like you're a lot weaker in terms of like what you're ending on. Because every end board seems kind of flat when you don't include the Fiendsmith cards, even if you try and take like this minimalist approach and just play like a mid-range deck with hand traps. I still think you are kind of open to Nib when everyone builds the deck in a specific way. Or it'll be like Nib pairing a hand trap, but obviously those beat Fiendsmith cards anyway. But like, am I wrong to assume that is the case? If no one plays Fiendsmith cards, like Nibiru is actually just insane in current.
I mean, most people are just playing 3 Nibiru anyway right now.
Yeah, no, but like that it feels like there is a big disparity if you can't afford Fiendsmith cards for your deck versus like if you could. That's the one thing I noticed. Like I'm sitting there just like, damn, if I could just make a Caesar here, I'm pretty insulated. This is probably fine. So if they have 3 hand traps, it didn't matter what they were anyway. But you know, obviously it feels a lot better when it's like I resolved Engraver and I make a negate and I don't get Nibiru'd in my, you know, relatively fair deck.
The pure Ryzel deck can always end on like Detonator with like plug-in always like through and like without the opportunity to get nibbed. So and cross like obviously not through other hand traps, but it's like
that's what I mean though.
It can always do that.
But is that like any better than playing the Fiendsmith cards at that point, right? Like that's just from what I've noticed. Obviously, people are probably just not playing stuff, you know, at 100%. But it just seems so often. And again, I'm playing Malice, so like that's probably another one. Just felt like every time I would play to beat a card like Nibiru, I was just ending on something 100 times worse than I should have been ending on, or like the checkpoints weren't there. And then the only logical conclusion I came to was like, why aren't there Fiendsmith cards in my deck? Like otherwise, I think my deck, any deck that I could play in current feels so much worse into Nibiru if I don't have Fiendsmith cards in my deck. Is that am I wrong to think that way?
I think the pure Ryzel deck is about the same into Nib, honestly.
And Malice never loses to just Nibiru anyway. They have to have like weird pairings of hand traps with Nibiru. If my opponent just has Nibiru, I am probably just winning.
Like normal combo, but you know what I mean though, right? Like if you get Nibiru in Malice, it's not the end of the world, but it never feels like amazing. It's
no,
fine.
I'm pretty happy they discarded a card for nothing.
Yeah.
And then also open them up to thrust in tactics.
I don't know. It's also probably just because like the way that I decided to play the pure deck was like the end board that I went for took Nib into account. Like so the end board that I did at whatever the YCS was.
Because your deck was kind of like Santoli's deck, right? Like the really standard bare bones hand. You didn't play the cash cards. You didn't play Fiendsmith cards, right?
No. I just but my end board was like I just ended with Cross, Detonator, a floating level 4 and plug-in. Because the way, and then if they nib, then you have to like to stop nib and I got the draw off cross, which is an important distinction because a lot of these combos don't actually like end with enough Rysels to do it, to have everything. But I don't even remember exactly how I sequenced it, but you have to send duo drive with X. It doesn't really matter the specifics, but it would be detonator, plug-in, and then a floating level 4 monster. And then because I also played, what's it called? Hole Thruster. You could attach that with plug-in at some point and then bring back a level 4. And then if they kill detonator, then you could banish it from grave and yada, yada. And that protects you from nib.
That's the beat Ultimate Slayer.
Yes. So okay, I did the field that beats Ultimate Slayer and doesn't get nibbed. I mean, they have to have both, I guess, but that was the field that I decided to do. There are obviously other ways that you can end your field in the pure Rysel deck. Like you can search the Hole Thruster instead of searching plug-in. Like, you can just do something like that. But that was the one that I decided I was going to do. I decided that if duo drive resolved, it was pretty likely that if I just went for the safest one, I would be in a good spot. And when duo drive resolved, I did the safest one, and I was usually in a good spot. Yeah, and now that's all irrelevant because the Fiendsmith deck, I think is just strictly better. So at this point in time,
Twins does beat,
and then
Slayer, right?
Twins changes everything because the play that I said to make sure you have enough names to always be insulated from everything involved my X sending a Rysel Xyz monster and then attaching it with duo, and then so my turn 1 was X sent duo drive, and then you'd always have enough guys. If you're sending twin, it's totally different, right? Like, because now you don't have that extra monster.
You don't have to play the trap. You don't have to play any of the
it's which I guess we'll get into Supreme Darkness soon because there's another.
I was trying to use that as my segue. I was like, we're talking about a card that is technically out.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeff, do you have any last things on this, or should you want to just segue into Supreme Darkness now that we're on that topic?
No, I'd rather talk about Supreme Darkness.
So we talked about twins a little bit last week, and I feel like a lot of the things that we said probably are not as relevant now as they were because how different the Rysel deck looks. The pure deck definitely gets stronger with twins, but I don't think like the Ouroboros loops are really gonna be good here. Like I think our format is just totally different, especially because the Ouroboros loops like kind of where you like resolve Ouroboros like 2 to 3 times, kind of like you just get Bestialed on the Ouroboros, right?
I was going to say now everyone's playing a gajillion Bestial,
right?
so
like,
it is a heavier investment.
You never have enough bodies to do it. Is the issue or
that build was really good. To dial it back, last episode, I talked about how I think in the Rysel mirror, in the pure mirror, it might just be better to go second and play breakers and like the hand traps that stop duo drive than to go first and make a mid board. And then I said that all might change when Eclipse comes out because Japan did that. Japan literally made that adjustment that I mentioned, and then they responded by just doing hand loop Ouroboros. Our format is totally different because we have the Bistral, the Fiendsmith engine that they didn't really have. Like their Fiendsmith, the cards they have for their Fiendsmith deck are totally different. They have like one engraver
and one track.
They also don't have Necroquip, right?
They don't have Necroquip. That is also correct. They do not have Necroquip.
Yeah, no. They have Lacrima. They don't need it.
You're right. They do have Lacrima. They don't need it. You're right. Although it does mean that they can't ever make, or they shouldn't ever be able to make Wave King plus Desiree, which we can technically, if you draw insane. But I don't think they can ever do that because they can only make the Wave King by using their sequence to get Lacrima. Yes. I'm sure I said that. I'm sure there's a way they can do it, but it's probably looks very, very different and probably like Necroquip makes it way easier for us basically. So I think the way that our format is shaping out, I really don't think twins will be good in that aspect. Like I don't think Eclipse Twins will be like the Ouroboros hand loop deck just based on how our format is shaping out. However, that card is still good and it makes the pure deck a lot more resilient, and that is like something the pure deck was missing compared to the Fiendsmith deck. Was the Fiendsmith deck, one of the reasons it was so good is you have all these resources that are recurable, right? Which the pure deck like really doesn't have to the same extent. Eclipse Twins can help with that. I think we're really gonna see the pure deck start to be like a more viable option when Maze comes out and we get 7th Ascension or 7th Tachyon or whatever it's called. But we'll talk about that way down the line.
I'd rather just not talk about that.
Yeah. Like that card is way down the line. So for now, Supreme Darkness, I don't necessarily think the pure Rizal deck gets better. Like it gets better, obviously, but I think the Fiendsmith deck also gets Eclipse and can use it. And I think they serve a similar role. So I think the pure deck doesn't necessarily go up in the world. And Malice might be a little like because of the I don't even know how to pronounce this, Abaoku, the Lightless Shadow.
Sure. Yeah.
I know there's a lot that you can do with this card. I mean, this you can technically make this in any Fiendsmith deck, I guess, because it's just a link for that needs a Fiend monster.
Any deck that uses a Fiend monster in the extra deck. Nightmare Phoenix.
Yeah. So have you played Malice with this card? Because we talked about this last time in a kind of like an abstract sense. We didn't really talk about like, I don't think any like specific applications. Have you been testing with this card? Like, do you have like a specific thing that you're doing with it, or is it just like another way to Reborn Whitebinder so your play is just a little safer?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've still been playing a lot with Malice. I don't think Malice is like a better deck than the Rizal deck. I just like it way more. I actually enjoy playing the Malice deck, whereas I want to fucking shoot my brains out playing the Rizal cards.
We've now been demonetized. To be fair, that's how I felt as well, just from first glance, solely for the fact that, like, okay, the Malice deck is a combo deck, but it doesn't feel like a combo deck that we've had in the last couple years. Like, it feels a little less fluid in that sense. It's a little bit more restrictive. I don't know what to compare it to be honest.
Anyway, I think that's with the Abaoku, what we're talking about.
Yes.
This is definitely one of my new kind of like favorite cards. When this card first got shown, I was like, wow, there's a world where I think this card just gets banned because this card could just be abused in so many ways. And everyone was like, a large amount of people were like, this card is very mid. Even up to like a month ago, I randomly got shown something on Yu-Gi-Oh! Reddit that was talking about how like just like okay this card is. I think you're all incredibly wrong. I think people don't know how to successfully evaluate cards. I think this card is broken, and I think it'll end up on the Forbidden List one day. But in regards to this, it is like very easy to bridge into whether you're playing Fiendsmith cards. If you're playing Fiendsmith cards, it's even easier because it's a 4, and you can just make it with any of the the Malice Link 3s and an Engraver. So you could just bring Engraver back and make a Abaoku, and then your opponent's turn you have a way to bring back something from graveyard if you somehow get cut off from Whitebinder, or you can pop a card, or you can also, what people are doing is using like linking IP into a Abaoku and then bringing back IP on your opponent's turn, which is another form of interaction. And then there's what like OCG does, and I think is actually like more decent than I gave it credit for, is using Nightmare Griffin. A very notoriously big hater of that card.
I think that anytime card too.
Anyone has thought that card was good, it ended up being terrible because everyone tried to do things like curious to send something crazy and then set it again.
Okay, no, that was game. No. You're wrong on that one. That was game when that resolved.
Yeah, but the thing is, it just did not resolve. That
in like, the Danger Thunder deck, it did. But yes, people tried it many times when it was like not good or feasible. But I do agree with you. Yes.
But now that you can kind of like very easily bridge that into a Abaoku and then bring it back in a middle zone, I think that's like really, really strong. And even in games where they are forced to like start out. First of all, if you're able to do that, your opponent's like Fiendsmith cards starting out don't really do anything, which is pretty great, and that forces them to have to lead with Rizal cards, which then locks them out of Fiendsmith cards. And usually they have to lead with EXT, right? Because EXT will send Aggregator to negate it.
Yeah.
But still, they will not be able to trigger the EXT. So they're just summoning a guide to negate it. And then you still have all your other interactions. And so you're basically they throw a card away for nothing to negate your Griffin. And then you still have a Battle Queue and a loaded graveyard. And it's honestly like, I think it's really, really strong. But other than that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this card, we recently saw the Evil Twin and Live Twin, like Link 1 and like almost like Ronin Totem-esque card get revealed. And this card, so the other aspect of this card that you didn't mention, I guess, that we talked about last time, I think, is when it reborns something, it also like Farfas itself, which is like such a hard thing to interact with. And it just basically means that if they don't kill you and this thing comes back, then it's just so difficult for them to ever like cut you off of it. And I'm just imagining a world where like you're playing like the new Live Twin stuff with the Link one and the other guy, and it's like, so now hand traps aren't as effective, and then you get to like turn 2 and they just like make this and then reborn a Trouble Sunny and then blink this every turn, and just like now they're just discarding a card to reborn a Trouble Sunny every single turn. And that just seems so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that actually just seems like so crazy.
The first one, you're probably dead.
No, sure, I agree with you, but it's just like that just seems it seems so easy to do, I guess I'll say. Yeah. Like it seems so easy to get to that point, and then it just seems just like an inevitability, and like one of those things where you're right, after they resolve it the first time, you kind of look at your hand and you're like, well, I couldn't answer that, and now you lose because you couldn't answer it the first time. And they get to do it every single turn. It's almost
when
like,
this card comes back at the end of your opponent's turn, like you feel pretty good because the deck, like Rizal and stuff, cannot really kill you like that, through hand traps and like any sort of field. So even games where like my opponents have like tried to like clear my field or somehow gotten to resolve an Exciton Knight, I just end phase, brought back a Battle Queue, and then drew. And then a Battle Queue's effect triggers, which lets you draw one card for every different monster type in your graveyard. So between hand traps and everything else, you draw like 4 cards and fix your hand, and then put 4 cards on the bottom of your deck. And it's like
you get to pick the perfect cards. Yeah,
you just get to sculpt your perfect hand.
It didn't need that effect.
Reading it back, I think that's a bit too far.
Yeah. And I think this is like to kind of touch on when you're talking about like people not evaluating cards correctly. I think it's because people see a card like this and they look at its effects, and on their own, none of these effects are game winning instantly. But when you combine them all into one card that's so resilient and so easy to access, it lives in your extra deck. You draw it every game. Haha, not entirely, but sort of. It just has so much utility. Like,
it came from a world where Apo existed as well, right? Yes. I think people sort of tunnel, like, the last year of Yu-Gi-Oh! Had been pretty ridiculous in terms of power level, and we're sort of, like, hitting that flat end of the curve where nothing seems too overtly ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous, but not like, here's 2 negate end board with, like, 3 layers of interaction. Ridiculous.
Which I prefer.
This card feels like a nice middling card. Like, it's broken, but I think you will see it fall in and out of favor in formats. Like, I don't think every deck has to play this card, right?
I agree.
No, not at all. But that's something also, like, with specifically with Appaloosa, is for a long time people would just think Appaloosa isn't a problem. Any spell or trap just deals with it. I don't know why people want this card banned, and it took a very long time for people to finally understand, like, that is, like, not the reason. Like, yes, Appaloosa negating your opponent's monsters on their turn is broken, but that was not the reason why Appaloosa was so absurd. It was the fact that any deck could sneeze, make it, and then you can't interact with your opponent anymore on their turn, right? And it's a very similar thing where if you read this, you, like, maybe not any single one effect seems broken, except for me, one of them actually does. And the fact you can bring back let me say this again. The 2 best attributes in the entire game. Any monster, and they're not locked into anything. It brings back any later dark monster. What are they going to do? Not make any good later dark monsters for the rest of Yu-Gi-Oh?
And
they're
ban
going
all
to make
the ones
something.
that exist.
Well, yeah, it's like it is only a matter, and eventually they will think, well, it has to do with like design. It's called like when designing things, you want to kind of like hopefully future-proof your cards. This card is not future-proofed at all.
Not even. It's the least I've ever
seen.
This
card would have been broken if it was printed any time in the last like 50. You like. I think everyone get yeah like. It's the furthest thing from future-proofing. Like, this is like, if you tell someone we're printing more light and dark support 5 years ago, you'd probably sigh and be like, okay, like, when are we going to stop? And it's like, okay, it's 2025 now.
Eventually, they'll probably get to a point where they'll think, wow, we want to print this really strong later dark monster, but a battle queue can abuse it. And then like, we'll probably have to get rid of it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we say, you know, not now, but probably eventually. Like,
well, I mean, yeah, I think it is good now. Like, I think it's a great card
now. There's like the princess conundrum, right? Where it's like, instead of banning princess, if they hit, like, you can't hit every light and dark card. There's just way too many
or every
scene
card,
right?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, like that's the concern. Whereas like something like princess, when there's only such a small amount of good fire cards, is like, yeah, this is fine. Like,
yeah, you can just hit like the good fire cards, and princess isn't like a problem anymore.
Yeah, but even like reading this card at first glance, it's like, even if there weren't too many good light and dark decks, or just like decks that could utilize this, I can just picture like some evil, you know, whatever, like some chimera deck that dumps like you know, a flood, and then it sets up double floodgate with like this plus banish and summon a guy back, right? Like, there's just so many options that it can do, and like each one seems like it'll just be used for evil in the future. If we're not, you know, stuck in like a nice mid-range format, like this.
I mean, even just summoning back like Nightmare Griffin is like pretty impressive.
Before you get into the fancy stuff, right? It's like, if you get really convoluted, I'm sure you can probably set up some things that are only possible with this card like existing.
I think summoning back Magnum seems pretty good.
That also seems
like,
pretty good.
I feel like that sometimes is just good enough. Right?
This card doesn't even like target either. It doesn't target when it destroys, and it doesn't target a monster in the graveyard. So if you like activate the effect of special summon, if you want to like Bestial the best thing, they still get something else, and then the card blinks itself and comes back. So I don't know.
The best part about Yu-Gi-Oh! And the most frustrating part is decks that just have the possibility of going infinite, and this is a card that gives you another like layer to going infinite, which is like the key concern, right? Like, just don't print more cards like this. Is probably the best way to look at it.
This card's incredibly fun. I like it right now, but
it's gonna be frustrating to play against. Like, when your opponent sits there and just slaps cards on the board. Yeah.
It feels maybe this is gonna sound crazy. It feels almost like how like DPE felt, where like DPE popping one card is not game, but just the inevitability of it, right, is what made that card so good for so long. And this one feels almost like kind of the same way, where it's like, it's reborning a card that gets value, assuming the card it reborns does literally anything, right? Like, interacts with your opponent literally at all. It's doing the sort of DPE effect where it's doing one interaction, and then it's going away and coming back, and they're just doing it every single turn.
What if Appaloosa also summoned a card from grave?
Yeah, literally.
I guess. Like, I don't know. That feels like pretty close, right? Where it's just like, okay, well...
Right, and this card like does have weaknesses, right? It's not like infallible. It like and that's why I think like makes it seem like kind of fair. If someone was like, "Oh, you can Ghost Ogre this card," and then get destroyed.
Too.
I was a firm hater on first glance. Don't worry. Like, having just read it on, like, if you read that after just like not being like, if the last bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! You played was like Baron, Savage, whatever, and like it just sort of just turned into Fiendsmith with Lacrima Desiree, right? You would read this card and think, oh, we've had worse. Like, we've had worse for the last year and a half. Like, this is whatever. This won't do anything. But just looking at how current Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played now, I think this card is definitely going to have a place in the format. Like, no one can dispute this now. And you see it when people are playing the Malice decks and there's, like, Iron Mans and money matches. Like, every Malice deck is making this card. Like, they're just going Phoenix into this, and it's you know, I think that's actually probably the only ways that that deck can play into post-SUDA Rysel, right? Like, that deck's just so resilient, and I think you just need to add these extra tricks to sort of push it a little bit further. Instead of, like, mono Malice support, it's like, here's this broken extra deck card. Those are always fun.
Well, speaking about support for other things, I think we'd like to also talk about, like, the Mitsurugis. I think those are, like, a lot of people's very interesting. Like, I am very surprised at how good these cards are.
I was going to say, did we finally... So, without jinxing it, and I'm going to say it anyway, did we finally get a TCG exclusive archetype that is functional out of the first wave of support and isn't, and we're not saying, well, these cards are good, but it just needs a little more support, and then the new support cards do nothing. Like, I think these function with just the first wave, which is, oh god, it feels like it's been a decade since we've had.
And I don't understand how it's possible, because it's also the worst type.
It's Reptile Ritual. If you told me,
it had to be the worst type.
If honestly. You told me,
I think you had to when you read the Ritual spell or even like the quick play, I think you have to make it Reptile and Ritual, right? You can't have another branded fusion situation.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But
it's like, it's like when reading those cards, like usually you read the monsters first and then read the spells and traps. Like usually people just read them in that order. So like that's what I did. I read the monster and I was like, okay, what the fuck?
Yeah, I read the ritual spell and I was like, what? I was like, excuse me?
Okay.
I was like, oh. I was like, why does it? I also was like, this is, yeah. The ritual spell is, but that's what it.
Actually, just both the spells.
The quick play spell is very good too. Quick play spell is crazy. Yeah. It's just like, yes, I agree with you. I was reading them. I believe I also read them in that order, and I was like, okay, like sure, like whatever, add a guy, whatever, and then like I hit the quick play spell, and I was like, oh, this card's good. You can search on the other guy, and then I hit the ritual spell, and I was like, this is advanced ritual art. Like this is what every Necros spell wishes it could be.
Yeah,
somehow.
Literally.
Like it doesn't have a graveyard effect though, so sucks. 0 out of 10. Spell card with no grave effects, no good.
That's
the trap
like,
does. The trap has a grave effect.
It does.
This is like the first round of support. Who's to say they don't just release a card that interacts with the spell engrave, like adds it back for free.
Well, one of the cards does add it back, but
I mean, just layer it on top. Just give it more and more. If like the first batch is good.
We've said this before. The second batch, I don't think the second batch has been playable for a TCG exclusive archetype in like literally since Dangers.
Nah, Memorable was actually like pretty good, honestly. Like that deck actually functions with the second support.
Sure.
I've lost to that deck at locals.
Okay.
All right. Like the only reason like that deck faltered so much originally, like I wouldn't say like only, but a huge reason was because how Dominus Impulse just fucks the deck entirely. Yeah. But when people like aren't playing that, it can actually play and it like is not that bad at all.
That deck got way too many cards to not be like at least pet deck playable, honestly.
No, like
I have to read a new Mimigal card every time I play against it. Like,
it has infinite recursion. Like it has removal. It has ways. That deck is actually just like not terrible at all. In the essence,
I also think
when it comes to TCG exclusive, anyway, it's like
sure. Oh yeah, I mean, I would if you told me it's like top 5. If you said Mimigal is top 5 TCG archetype, I'd be like, I believe you. like I believe you, I guess. Yeah, like maybe, but. Yeah. So I guess like real quick, we've just been saying how good these cards are. It is possible that somebody has not read these cards. Basically, the ritual spell, the one card that I think is like the crux of this deck is the ritual spell has 2 modes, and you can't use both in the same activation, but you can activate 2 ritual spells and use both modes, which probably you do.
You use both the same turn because you activate it, use one, and then you add it back to hand immediately, and then play it again.
Yeah, so you either ritual summon the ritual monster from your deck using reptiles on your hand and field, or you ritual summon a reptile from your hand using reptile monsters from your deck. So it has 2. So like it fixes the ritual problem, and obviously the ritual cards, the ritual monsters like have effects and are not awful. Like they're worth summoning, right? So they're like proactive, roughly. So it fixes the ritual problem that like every good ritual deck in the last decade, actually maybe even ever, even going as far back as 2007 with the Demise deck, is like ritual summoning as intended in like the original like couple Yu-Gi-Oh sets is unplayable. Using a spell to summon a monster from your hand by tributing other monsters is just like a neg 3. Like it's just not good, especially because the ritual monsters in the early game were just like vanillas. And then we got Demise, King of Armageddon, which this is a throwback. If you played in 2007, there was a real deck where Advanced Ritual Art came out, which says ritual summon a monster from your hand, but the materials or the tributes are normal monsters in your deck. So they would send Insect. They said Insect Knight, right? That's what it would be.
Well, like they play the level 8 or they play the level 4s. Yeah.
Yeah, they played Insect Knights.
Near
Bug,
yeah,
and then you summon Demise. And Demise is just Judgment Dragon before Judgment Dragon. You pay 2,000 to wipe the board except for itself. And then you send insects because there was a card called Doomdozer that was banished 2 insects to summon it and it had 2,800 attack. So if you played a little bit and just had enough insects, like it was like one of the first like pretty consistent OTK decks. Like it wasn't like turn 1, but you know, with a little bit of setup. To the point that didn't like Demise get limited at some point or something like that?
It did.
Yeah. So
and like Advanced Ritual Art and like Manju and stuff, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Manju was at 1 at some point. Maybe Senju was at 1. I don't even know.
Yeah. Because which is like so funny to think about, right? And then we didn't see another ritual deck be really playable. Like Gishki was okay, but that deck was barely a ritual deck. That deck
was an FTK deck.
Yeah, exactly. Like that deck didn't actually ritual. And then we had Nekroz, which circumvented how rituals work because you either banish materials from grave to ritual from hand, tribute from hand to summon a ritual monster from your grave, or my favorite, using your extra deck as the materials for ritual was super cool. And then Drytron was just, you know, I'm not even sure I call that a ritual deck either, but I think this is like a more elegant solution to that, right? I think the only way to now that we have this card, the only way for ritual summoning to get like better, the only ritual spell that can be better than this would be send from your extra deck to summon ritual from grave, or send from deck to summon ritual from deck, right? I think those are the only things left. And I think if we get something like, and I think that would be like the branded fusion problem, where Shaddoll Fusion used to have a restriction to using guys in your deck, right? And branded fusion just didn't, and then it just became insane. And then even if branded wasn't always like the best deck in the format, I think everybody agrees that like branded fusion on its own is like one of the most powerful cards ever printed, right? Like it does so much just on itself. And do you think we could ever get a ritual spell better than this one? Or like, is this probably like the limits?
I mean,
I would hope not, but like
I imagine we will, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, if this card could have been like quick play.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
the Megalith. Actually, doesn't the Megalith deck like summon from deck at quick? Doesn't have a quick play ritual that summons from.
They
deck
also,
or something?
it's like they generate the body that lets you ritual.
Yeah.
So
right?
they did like Shaddoll Fusion, then like El Shaddoll Fusion, and they just make a quick play version, so you can just kill your opponent faster.
Yeah.
You know?
Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. So
where do you think they go for like support wave 2 or 3 or like just any subsequent support? Because I feel like they did a lot like first wave, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like every other card that comes out probably won't be able to compare.
I think they could do a level 12 ritual monster because
so you have the option to tribute 3 instead of 2.
No, so the ritual spell can only use 2 reptiles from your hand, deck, or field whose total levels equal to ritual. So if they make a level 12 ritual monster, you could use one of the level 4 monsters.
Top of level 8 and a 4,
yeah,
and then the 8 searches
sure.
afterwards. That would actually be
Wait,
broken.
does it say exactly 2? That's very funny.
Up to 2.
Up to 2.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is actually.
So I think a 12 wouldn't be out of the question. A little ritual monster wouldn't be out of the question either. I think that's something that's like kind of underexplored and why like Necros of Unicorn is like one of my favorite cards. Necros of Classalis I think are like so cool because I think like low level ritual monsters, like low level synchros and rituals, I think are things that are like really underexplored and I think are like have potential to be really cool. Like I also really like Armory Arm because it's just like the little extra deck cards I think are like really interesting. And there aren't many of them, which is so I wouldn't mind seeing like a level 4 ritual monster. It probably wouldn't be as good as just tributing 2 from your deck to make an 8, but it could be cool if they give it
don't
like.
Say that. I'm sure it actually would be.
What it would be?
But, I mean,
like it would be good. Yeah.
Like I'm sure, just like because also it's just like you can doing it with only one. Like if you by summoning from deck with only one guy. Like if you only have one monster in hand.
Oh yeah.
And the
you can
yeah.
Just,
right, and then you just summon and then you tribute, and then you just it'll probably fucking. I mean, it'll probably have the same effect where if it's tributed, you search or something like that. Yeah. So, and then you just probably just full combo. But,
which I guess to talk about the evolution of rituals, they also kind of like for this deck, what I think also makes it so good is they kind of merged both halves of the Necros and the Gishki decks, where like. Both Gishki and Necros had your ritual monsters, and then you had your little guys that had effects. Where for Gishki, they just could be they could be treated as like the whole ritual requirement. For Necros, they could be treated. Some of them could be treated as the whole requirement, and then also like searched on top of it when tributed. And they just kind of merged those together for this deck, where like the ritual monsters like trigger when tributed, but they all involve. No, the summon's optional, right? So you can just tribute.
You always search. And then if they were properly summoned,
then you can bring them back. Yeah. So I think that's like I like the design space of this a lot, and I hope the next wave is actually good. I don't know if I want I don't think I want the next wave of support for this to provide like more like a higher power level. I think I just want more utility. I think like as I said, like a level 12 or a level 4 would be cool just to give you more options of what you can do, right? And assuming they did like literally anything proactive or whatever. And maybe like another little guy because they only have
I'm almost positive they will make another level 4 monster.
Yeah, I don't know what it could do. They have one that adds back from grave. They have one that adds. Oh, this doesn't only add spell or trap. Maybe they could make one that just searches like a monster. I guess that'd be okay. And then would have some, and then obviously would also like when you tribute it would trigger. So you could, if you could tribute.
I wonder if there's any. So like on the Mimigul cards on the first wave, there were hints of what the second wave were going to be on the art. I'm gonna look to see if there's any later. But yeah, I think you'll probably be like another ritual monster. A low level one would be cool, like you said. Yeah. Another main deck monster. They love making trap cards that let you ritual summon on your opponent's turn. I would not be surprised if they make another trap card that does that.
That is true.
What else? I'm trying to think. I mean, I would not be surprised if they get a field spell or a continuous spell, maybe. Yeah, they don't even have a normal spell. They start a ritual spell and a quick play spell, so maybe just a normal spell. But
yeah, right now it looks like the like there's a blue monster and a red monster, and then a blue ritual and a red ritual, and it looks like they're like the evolved versions of the guys, of the little guys. So I could definitely see us getting one more little guy and then one more ritual monster that would like correspond. That'll be interesting. But yeah, I like this deck. I think it's pretty good. I think there are a lot of ways to play it. I think the one that we've seen people try out has just been replacing the Fiendsmith cards in the Rizal deck with the Mitsurugi cards. And I think the consensus after playing with it for a while is kind of like the Fiendsmith cards are probably better, which sure, right? Like that's fair. Like
so so it's weird because like better is a weird term because I think when you resolve any of the Mitsurugi cards in the Rizal deck, it just feels so incredibly unfair that it's like, wow, why would I do anything else? But the thing is when you use the Mitsurugi cards, you have to cut down a non-engine, which means hand traps, and then you go second, and then your opponent just full combos or sets up an entire board uninterrupted, and then it has hand traps on top of it, and that does not feel good. So I think because of that reason, like the Fiendsmith version with like more hand traps and non-engine is better in the long run. But I still think the Mitsurugi like Rise deck is pretty good, and I think that I don't think it's very interesting because I don't think Rise cards are interesting, but I think Mitsurugi in general, Mitsurugi X, Fiendsmith, Mitsurugi X, what is the Azamina.
Algoatic.
Oh, Azamina.
Do you mean the reptile deck or no?
And then Algoatic. Algoatic is definitely the most like the coolest one because it's like a pure reptile deck, but that deck's like a pile and also can't use hand traps. So
that deck is like a lot
of
engine.
Extra synergy, but it means that you have like the 4-card hands less often, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you still probably have a 4-card hand more often than not, but
yeah,
it's like when you load up Nadia's Servant to create more pairings and stuff like that. But I feel like at that point you're not playing one of those decks. You're just playing some watered down strat. You could probably just be playing Rizal Fiendsmith.
Yeah, which is like
kind of unfortunate.
Is this something that we like keep in the back pocket? And if there's a list that like only hits Fiendsmith and doesn't hit the other engines, like maybe this becomes better. These also get hit by Bestials. They're all dark monsters. Ha 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 ha. I guess.
Oh, that is another thing. Yes, they do get hit by Bestials as well.
So it's now gotten to the point where it's like, okay, so the best cards in the game are Light and Dark. So we just spent 10 minutes talking about A Link 4 that Reborn's Light and Darks and it being broken. And then at the same time, the other best cards in the game are Lights, which are Fiendsmiths, which then means that everyone must play Bestials, which are anti-Light and Dark cards. So then any Light and Darks worse than Fiendsmiths. But right, like it's also like oddly circular of just like everything else getting like pushed out. And I'm not sure where like the balance. I'm not sure what balance can be struck at this point, but I think these are definitely like real cards. Like I'm probably going to like pick these cards up when they come out, so I have the option to play them down the line. These are not cards that I think like. I don't think this is a card you need to be like clamoring to get at your sneak peek, but I think like a week or two after release, if you're just kind of, like going through and like picking up stuff that you don't have or that you might want, like I think it would be very reasonable to pick up.
These cards will be very affordable because somehow none of them are secret rare.
Yeah, that's also crazy.
They always make ITC exclusive secret rare.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised
I can't believe it.
Yeah, so it'll be very affordable. So I think for people looking for like an affordable, cool deck, I 100% think.
And this is something, if you do have a Rizal deck, this is something that Bohdan mentioned where like, if you don't have access to all the pieces and you can't afford Fiendsmith, I think this is probably going to be a very reasonable, like, because like the Rizal core is like, when you compare the price of the Rizal core to the price of like the previous like tier 1 decks, it's nothing. It's
cheap,
like I want to say it's like 1/5 of the cost of what the Snake Eyes deck was. Like maybe not even 1/5 if we're talking like just the Rizal cards. And like I understand that it's probably like $200 and that's still a lot of money to spend on like a hobby, but like compared to where we were like literally a year ago, where like the full Fiendsmith decks with like bonfires or whatever was like $900 to $1,200. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. And if you do have a Rizal deck, but if you spend the $200 on the Rizal cards and then didn't want to spend the extra $350 on the Fiendsmith, I feel like picking up the Mitsurugi cards is probably going to be a very reasonable alternative, right? Just if you don't want to play the pure Rizal deck and you want to play something else, I think it's like probably very reasonable. So I guess the other thing, I don't know, I didn't mean for this to turn into like a market type thing, but I think of something else to pick up if you're interested in these cards. King of the Feral Imps only has, I'm gonna say 2 printings because it was Tachyon Mega Pack. I count that as 1 printing, I know, but whatever. And then Ancient Guardians Rare. This card is like a quarter right now, and if this Mitsurugi deck pops off, this card will not be a quarter, right? Like it is a rare in Ancient Guardians, which was a very under-opened set. And the rare is already creeping up to like 40 cents, 50 cents. And then we've seen commons from mega packs and like sets this old. Like, in fact, there are commons in Tachyon Galaxy. The Dragon Ruler, the Baby Rulers are like $3, right? Like from this pack. So I could definitely say that if you see yourself wanting to play Mitsurugi and you don't already have them, King of the Fair Olymps is probably the most you can stretch 50 cents to be to TBH. Like, I would just recommend maybe picking up some of those if you don't have them. Like 2 King of the Fair Olymps probably be good. But I think that's all I got on Mitsurugi. I don't know if you guys have any other specifics.
No, not really. I think that pretty much covers it. The only other thing, the only interesting archetype I think in this that I think is worth talking about is probably the Crystron cards, which I'm not sure if you read at all, but those cards are really cool. Okay, yeah.
I don't think they're as good as the decks right now, but I do think they're like very competent.
I think so. It's really weird because it's like when you're reading them, it doesn't really seem like a lot, especially like when you see a deck hits a new synchro monster, you're like, oh, what is this new boss monster now? And this card's just like not a new boss monster, but it does function very well into. So the thing about the cards is that I think in OCG, I think this deck can actually do it kind of well, or could do kind of well when Rizal was the best deck, because Detonator is like not a big threat to them compared to other decks, because every single one of their cards get effects when they're popped.
Oh yeah, that's like one of the Crystron
it's
gimmicks.
One of the Crystron things. So like even if they summon a guy, activate effect, it gets popped and it activates and searches another guy or special one, or you banish it from graveyard and it searches. And so it also, they have their new monster says whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, you get to summon a guy from your deck. So even if you like summon him and activate a card, if they ever chain Detonator, you just get a guy from your deck. So I think this is like a really good, like also a very affordable. This is another deck that is very affordable. Yeah,
it's like all commons and supers, right?
Well, yeah. Their best card is like a continuous spell searcher that also monster warns a guy.
It's a super rare, or is it a?
I think
it's a common.
It's a super rare.
That's a common.
Yeah.
Crystron Inclusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the guy that you mentioned that summons a guy from your deck in quick synchros, he's a super rare. I think everything else is a common. Yeah.
Even the synchro monster is?
Yeah, the synchro monster is a common, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm a little surprised, but it is what it is. And then I guess quick interjection here. Something that I think is like kind of interesting, and like the timing of it being right after SP getting a reprint is not the best, but I do think it is interesting that they've just come out with so many of these decks that are not Link decks, right? Like. So I think that was also a big price barrier last year. Also, was the extra deck cards were very expensive, right? Like Princess, SP, stuff like that. And now, like the Rizal, like the pure Rizal deck, in addition to like the actual engine being less expensive than last year's best decks, how much would it cost just going to UCG Player and fill your cart with rank 4s? Like $10? Probably something like that, right? Like Dweller, Exiton.
I don't think any of the rank 4s are really worth anything.
They're really not worth anything, right? So like Baguska got a reprint recently twice.
Exiton Knight got a reprint.
Exiton Knight got a reprint. Yeah, it's like that is also something where I think like accessibility has gone up. I'm gonna say probably unintentionally. Like, I don't think when they designed the Rizal deck, their intention was like, it'll be cheap to fill the extra deck of this deck. Like, I don't think that's something they really like necessarily thought of, but I do think it's interesting that we're getting like more. And I'm assuming Crystron, I don't remember if there was a card that locked you into synchros, but I'm sure your extra deck is like mostly synchros. But
well, the thing, almost none of them lock you into synchros, if any of them, but they lock you into machines, which is fine because they have multiple level 5s, and you use them to make Cyber Dragon Infinity.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which is how it's like their end board is like, pops on your opponent's turn in Cyber Dragon Infinity, and spells and traps.
And I'm sure the machine link monsters, like there's a lot of machine link monsters. I'm sure some of them are fine, right? Like that Earth Machine deck probably has something you can just summon for no reason that might do anything.
I'm trying to remember what my extra deck was when I was messing around with this.
I think I watched one replay where somebody made the Clockwork Knight. I don't remember.
I was going to say, I think I used Clockwork Knight. Well, it's just so there. It's a Link 1, and then like one of the Crystron monsters. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
One of the Crystron, well, actually multiples. Say you just banish them from the graveyard and search. So you normal summon it, and then link into Clockwork Knight, and then banish it to search, and then you can start the combo.
Nice.
So.
My favorite, Link 1,
yes.
to let you put Sangan in grave.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How great. Right. Now, this is, I think, like, there's a ton of, like, Azamina and, like, Sinful Spoils cards and all that stuff, and, like, it's in a really awkward spot now because, obviously, Original is banned. But, like, at the same time, maybe it means that, like, these cards actually have a purpose, because it means that if you want to play these cards, like, your searches are not defaulting to Original, because that's the best thing you can do. Now, you might actually search the other cards. I'm not convinced necessarily, but I do think that Snake Eyes Doom Dragon is super cool. Or at least I thought it was super cool. Wait, what?
I think that card is also incredibly cool. I like that card.
Oh, okay. And then I remember I said, this card's cool. And you're like, yeah, it's cool in Fiendsmith. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, it can be used in Fiendsmith, yeah.
I was like, oh, man. Like, because I remember I was talking to Jesse about this a while ago, where, like, he topped with his, like, Crystal Beast Snake Eyes deck a couple months ago. And something that he mentioned was, like, that deck didn't really rely on Original necessarily. It kind of just like most of the time he said he was just searching, like, the field spell, and he was just getting, like, more bodies, and he was link climbing into like Saryuja and just doing, like, the Crystal Beast stuff. And this card is really good in that deck, because it's just, like, an extra monster you can make. If at any point you just have the Crystal Beast in the small trap card zone, and you just, like, need an extra guy, just, like, a big guy, you can just make him. Like, he's a fusion monster that you can contact fuse using monster cards from your spell and trap card zone. So he can just, any two Crystal Beasts can just turn into him, and then you could probably do something funny. So I doubt that will be, like, a great deck, but it's a deck that I enjoy, and it's a card that, can be pretty cool in that deck. The rest of the Azamina stuff, I don't think any of the rest of the Azamina stuff is nearly as good as the Azamina stuff that already exists, right? Like, no way. Like, do you even play any of this?
So Azamina Elzat Azamina, this card is super broken. This is like a...
What is that?
It's number 8. Card number 8.
Card number 8. Azamina... Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Especially with Alliance Insight, which I think is going to be an absolute another crazy banger set.
Yeah, that set looks really, really cool.
After Supreme Darkness is very mid.
Yes.
I expect a lot of things from that. But there's a new... the White Forest deck gets its own field spell, finally, that searches. So it actually has 1-card combos, and this card is like... Yeah, this card's really, really good. I'm a big fan of this card. I wanted to try messing around with, like, this deck for the YCS in Orlando, which is in a couple weeks. But again, it was, like, kind of like it can't use enough non-engine to feel good.
Yeah.
But I still think it's pretty cool. I like the White Forest cards a lot.
That is for sure an advantage of the Fiendsmith deck as well, is just because, like, the Fiendsmith engine is so small. Like, it's so few cards in your main deck because any two monster, like, it's the Orcus thing, right? Any two monsters just makes Requiem, essentially. So you can play, like, a small engine, and then you can access all your cards, like, forever. But as opposed to all the other decks that need, like, 12 cards. But I just had another card I wanted to mention, and I lost track of it on my screen. Whoops. Stall. Give me a second. Oh no!
Stall.
What was the card I was looking at? Oh no!
Was it at the bottom?
I want to talk about the Tenyis a little bit. Not, like, a lot, but I think these cards are, like, kind. I like Tenyis.
I like I mean, I guess I don't like Sword Soul, but I think Tenyis are cool.
Sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, Tenyis are almost always used for Sword Soul. But yes, I agree. I think they made this card a secret rare, which I think is great. That's one thing. The rarities in this set left field for a lot of them. I was really shocked this card was a secret rare. I can't believe the Crystron cards are commons and supers, and this card is secret rare. Like, I don't really get it, but
I can't believe a lot of cards in this are secret rare.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't like, this set was not very good. They should, like, I know a lot of people will like complain about like affordability, but I would like to see like more balanced sets, not completely like if things don't need to be $1 billion. I also don't think they need to be worth nothing. I wish sets were more balanced and not so skewed to one or the other. And again, this goes to like the exact opposite, where it's going to be worth like nothing. Like there's like 2 cards worth pulling out of the secret rare spot. It's really annoying that they can't seem to just make more balanced sets to where like at least a good amount of the cards you're pulling are actually worth like the $70 or $80 people have to buy a box for at their locals.
What do you? Okay, just real quick, like conspiracy theory. Because we know Fua is in Stampede, I am like 90% sure it would be crazy if Fua was in Stampede and Perulia wasn't. Like that would just be insane. Do you think they would put Meowls in Stampede?
No. But I was also thinking maybe they don't put Perulia in there and save it to sell another set.
Oh,
but,
sure.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise.
Well, then at that
but...
rate, I feel like they would just put Perulia in this one and put Fua in the next. Like it would seem so weird to put Fua in this one and then Perulia in the next one, as opposed to
Fua is just like the more sought after card. But
I guess that card came out last week. Like that card is like. But yes, sure. That's true. They could hold Perulia to reprint a different set, but
I would. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't just say them together.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Get your hands on the Molchummy or Molcharmies that you desperately wanted, and just say them both. I don't know why they wouldn't have just said both. Honestly,
I think the easiest thing that they could write is like kickstart the 2025 national season with insert Perulia, insert Fua, insert all these other cards that people will buy the set for. Like that's literally the only reason why those cards are getting reprinted now instead of the normal product cycle. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Perulia though.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's left to be reprinted, to be honest. Like outside of the Fiendsmith stuff and everything else.
That's another thing. I wonder if the Fiendsmith cards will be in there.
Bistils.
Well, yes, Bistils. Yes, the Bistils need QCRs. Yes.
A core set, right? Like I guess like the Bistils make sense, but I mean more from like a recent core set or side set. Is like what do we have left that hasn't been reprinted already? Outside of like the obvious like Fenrir, Druiswam, whatever.
No. Oh yeah, the Kashtiras could be QCRs. Like, yeah. But all right, let's not go too deep into that. But yeah, that is. I think there's definitely some stuff left. But
did you talk about little Chorizo, the little?
Oh no, fella? I didn't. So Magistus Chorozo. This is a card that I wanted last set because I wanted to play it in Centurion, and then now I don't even know what would have to happen for this card to be good. But like it's just a little late. Like this card came out a while ago in Japan, right? This card came out.
Yeah. It was
in June.
It would have
came out 7 months ago.
Necroquip for us because I remember we used this card to reference the Necroquip ruling, right?
Yes. We did. Yeah. The card
because this was a jump promo or something. V jump.
It was a promo. Yeah, with the V jump because promo. It's part of like the Magistus storyline that they're doing right now.
Yeah. This card's another like contact fusion-esque card by sending like
cards from your spell and trap card zone.
Cards from trap card zone. Yeah. So if you have a spellcaster monster such as Primera in your spell trap card zone, you can use this to fusion summon. It's another tuner monster, so you get access to extra tuners in the Centurion deck in specific circumstances. I'm sure there are combos that utilize it on purpose that I just can't remember or can't think of right now. But for the most part,
before it was just like an OCG. You played it in Snake Eye, and then you could make Baron with it. But
nice! That's really cool.
Not only is Snake Eye not very good right now, we do not have Baron.
We don't have Baron, yeah.
But yes.
Also the issue. There's some of the Rizal decks played it right with like the Magistus girl. Because it just gens like a level 4 body, or it's like 2 level 4 bodies, but it's
I know that, one of the Magistus cards is just a rank 4, so that would not surprise me.
If you play Zeroa,
yes,
Zeroa. I'm pretty sure it's Zeroa. It's the same thing as like the Exorcist deck, right? Except like better. Like when they played Zeroa for like an extra
Yeah, because
spot.
Zeroa, if I remember vaguely, Zeroa can equip Artemis from extra deck. Then Artemis can just search like another Zeroa. Does that sound right? Probably. And then you probably do something else.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Wait, one second. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll search while you talk.
I also can't believe there's like more Fiendsmith cards in this set. I don't think they're particularly great, but
they're only decent. So I think like the new fusion monster is actually pretty cool.
I don't know how you have extra space for it, but I agree.
But
like he looks sick too. Like he looks cool.
He does look sick. He looks like he should be way better than he actually is.
Sure, you know what? You know what? I agree. He does look like he should be way better than he is. I
100% believe that in the first iteration of this card's effect, his effect was way better, and it went back and got changed.
Yeah. Also, why does 100%. The stat line? This is such an unusual stat line for like a modern Yu-Gi-Oh! 3,000 attack, 3,600 defense. That is such a weird stat line. Like, makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, I kind of thought the same too. Like, these are such weird numbers to have on the card. But yeah, in Japan, that card's way better because they have Lacrima, so Lacrima can make it way easier because of its fusion, what its materials are. Because you can use cards in your spell and trap card zone to make it with one of the combos. But which I don't know why they keep doing. I don't know why that's like the theme they're going with right now is fusion and linking and summoning things using cards in your spell and trap card zone. But yeah, that you can do that with that card, and it's kind of cool. But it's way worse here because we don't have Lacrima, and so you have to go way out of your way to make it for no reason at all.
Yeah, you have to. This seems like the type of thing where you would make like the utility I see of this happening is you use Fiendsmith in Paradise to send Desiree and get the interaction. Then, because we don't have Lacrima, you could play this and you could fuse the Desiree into this, right? Like that could be something. Well, it's so easy to put Desiree back in your extra deck though, so it doesn't seem like that.
Well, that's like part of the combo, right? Is that like you have Desiree with a guy equipped to it, and then on your opponent's turn, you banish the new trap card from grave, which lets you fusion summon using cards in your field and small trap card zone. Yeah. So you fusion Desiree and the card that's equipped to him into this guy. Desiree will trigger, and then like that guy will trigger.
Yeah, but I mean like without adding that other card to your deck, you can just make this by like this lets you like there are ways to foolish Desiree to your graveyard without actually like making it.
Yeah.
So like like this card is definitely like fine. I don't think the trap is that great, but I don't know, maybe.
No, without Lacrima, the trap is terrible.
Yeah, it seems like super awkward. I agree.
Update: We don't have, nor will we be getting the other Magistus cards that facilitate.
Oh really?
Oh
no!
It's in the little shitter side set or whatever it is. The OCG Stories.
Oh,
yeah.
This card's name is Spoon.
It's the promo card that comes. Yeah. So
why would they give us this one and not all of them? What? That's so random. Okay, whatever. I'm a little sad now, but it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know how this works. I was like scrolling through and I'm just like, wait, I guess we don't have these cards yet, and I'm just like looking to see what other promo cards there are, but. It's like the same manga that gave us like the new Sky Striker link and stuff that combines.
Which we still don't have that one Sky Striker link that is
the big one. Now. It's link 4, right?
No. It's maybe we don't have the. Oh no, we have the link 4. No, it's
Do we really
have
link
2? Right?
The one that everyone wants. The link. It's the link 2 that Foolish Burials on Summon or whatever.
Yeah.
It's generic.
Let me find it.
Is it? It's a Camellia.
It's combined mobilizing game.
Oh, Sky Striker Ace Camellia. Yeah.
Yeah, Camellia. Yeah.
Generic summon. If you 3 less monster graveyard, send a Sky Striker card next to your graveyard. This card sends the graveyard. Target one monster controls person this card from its field. Target monster graveyard. Oh. I forgot that I definitely. Now I know why I forgot about this card because I read it 18 months ago.
Yes.
I see.
I don't know why we don't have that card. That card's like really good.
Like 30 different volumes.
This card, sorry, this is just. I'm looking at all the ways this came out in a Chinese language pack in a set that had Fire Fists in it. What? Like, why?
That's just like
that's the
like
best.
How China releases stuff. I don't know. If you've seen, like the Chinese advertisement on.
I was about to say. Do you remember way back when they first started doing some Chinese cards where the Chinese release of Cosmo Blazer just had like black wings in it. It just had like Shura like in the back page of Cosmo Blazer.
They have their own custom sets now, and it's so funny. Like some of them are just so ridiculous. I'm trying to
that's the one. I just found one that has
the
that
Fire Fist one
card.
is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, the Fire Fist pack with Gate Guardian on the cover and has the Sky Striker Ace Camellia that we just don't have, and they got it a year ago. So that is bizarre. We don't have this card. I'm sure they're saving it for something, but that is very strange that we don't have this. Maybe they'll do it when we get the Sky Striker anime or something in April or whatever they're doing.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I think I found it. So China has what they call entry packs and like theme packs, and those are meant to like facilitate like the cards being printed in Chinese. So like entry pack is like a tournament pack, and that's where you'll just see like all of the random reprints that make 0 sense, but they just do it to up the card pool. And then I think the theme pack is the one that you see that's like an amalgamation of just whatever they think people want, which is apparently Fire Fist. 2025.
Yeah. Oh well.
And then everything else is like core sets, but like I'm gonna show you this. Like I don't want to drag this on too much, but Ryan, you're gonna look at this artwork for the pack, and you're gonna scream. you're gonna see when it came out, and you're just gonna be like, "There's no way."
I've seen this. I've seen this. I've seen this. I've seen this. I've seen this.
For reference, the artwork is like it has Ignista Prominence, the Synchro. It has the Broken Starving Venom Fusion and Kieran, and it's called Dragon Sword Trail theme pack. It's awesome.
I remember it just has all the pendulum. It just has all the pendulum decks, and this is. I remember looking at this pack list and being like, this is so funny. It's all of like the Odd Eyes all like the Odd Eyes Perform Bell cards, all the Ignites, all the Magic Specters, all the Dynamis, all the generic pendulums, and then it's every like it's like Horn of Heaven, Black Horn of Heaven. You know what I mean? It's just all like the cards that negate pendulum summons.
These feel like Master Duel or like Duel Links,
they do.
Right?
They do feel like
so cool. Yeah. I wish these existed for us. I know it would never work, but like it would just be so interesting. It's like, oh, what's that? Instead of like a side set like Bonanza or something, how about theme pack?
Yeah,
like,
and they're all like reprints.
You have your zombie set with 100 reprints.
I mean,
in it or
they've
something.
tried that before, right? We got two sort of. We got Fist of the Gadgets was like mostly a reprint set, and then like a couple.
Because that didn't have an OCG set, right?
It did not. That was
that was a TCG exclusive set, if we like to call it that, even though it sounds good.
That does sound weird, but it was. That is what it was. Which also odd pairing of Gadgets and Fire Fist, but oh well.
Fists of the Gadget.
Fists of the Gadget. Anyways, so.
All right, final on the way out.
OCG
just announced the next deck build pack and showing some of the art. So I'm going to talk about it before we go because it's cool.
Sounds good.
How will this affect Chinese Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah. So we have new theme 1, Dragon Tail, and there's a big
real original.
There's a big weird hulking, I don't know, humanoid dragon, a fusion monster that can harness the power of the dragon demons in its hands.
That sounds nothing like any other dragon card Yu-Gi-Oh we've ever had before.
Okay, the next theme, get ready for this. Yummy.
Yummy?
Yummy. The Yummy.
Oh my god.
And so the art, I'm gonna show you real quick. Look at this art.
Wow.
That is real art.
So for those
like AI.
Okay, so I'm sure by the time this goes up, this will be posted everywhere. I'm gonna try to describe what I think is happening. It looks like
this looks like a Melfi card.
It looks like a cat made of ice cream in a spacesuit, holding a smaller cat that's also made of ice cream, but this one is like, it's just like a parfait cup with paws, and there's a UFO crab in the back. This is crazy. I hope. Okay.
This is if I prompt ChatGPT to make a Hello Kitty archetype, I think this is what it would give.
This is
very
ridiculous. Okay, I hope that by the time this goes up, this image has been circulated. People don't think we're losing our minds. But
it is a synchro monster that captures strange beast type light monsters.
Okay. Fableds, pretty good. That's cool.
The next is K9.
Okay.
And it's an Xyz monster that cuts through evil and pervades the darkness. Are you ready for this one?
Uh-huh.
Dude, yeah.
What do you think it is? What do you think it is?
It has to be a dog, like police officer, maybe.
Ooh,
like I don't know.
I know what it could be, but I can't say it, and I have to write it down and tell everyone later.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
So the first one was dragons. The second one is cute. There's always like a 3 or 4 different subtypes. There's always like a cool one or like a mech-based one, and then there's a cute one. And then there's
K9 is a female archetype.
There's no way.
Here you go.
Oh my god!
I knew it. God damn it! I knew it. It just happened.
I hate this.
Man, the first win again.
I hate this so much. Oh my god!
It's very funny.
Okay. I don't know how much of this I'm gonna leave in. I guess I'll leave in all of it, but oh my god, I hate this so much. I could tell from a
mile away. I knew it.
God. Ugh. Okay.
It's more alarming that this just looks like Vanquished Soul. Like
this does look like a this does look
mean?
like a Vanquished Soul and a Zodiac.
I don't like that.
Yeah, like this looks the armor looks like Airlifter also a little bit. The Rescue Ace monster.
Sure.
But yeah, man, I guess. All right, well, I'm glad that we got that in real time. Oh my god. I cannot believe. Oh my god. Well, I guess it was a dog police officer, sort of.
Yeah, you were not.
I guess we were all. If Bohdan and I combined our answers, then I guess it's fine. Okay, thank you all for listening. This was our Supreme Darkness. We did not go through every single card, as I didn't expect us to, but I think we covered a lot of different aspects of this set. So, I guess to briefly summarize, if you are playing competitively this season, or you intend to play competitively next season, or whatever, I think my recommendations would definitely be, I think probably pick up the Mitsurugi cards. Like, I think they'll probably not be that expensive for the ultra rares, and I think just having them is good because they are going to get another wave of support, and whether or not it's good or not, time will tell. But it's pretty functional right now. If you have a Ryzo deck but don't want to spend the money on the Fiendsmith deck, I think this is a very reasonable alternative to play at the local and regional level, and honestly, probably even the YCS level. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some Mitsurugi Ryzo topped Orlando. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Sure.
I think it's good, but I also think it's kind of overexposed right now as well.
I agree.
You see, like, Triff is probably one of the more vocal people in the community, and he's been a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's a bad deck, but maybe you might see some skewed representation, and it might fix itself, like, after the first event, right?
Yeah, I agree. And then...
Or it's broken,
the rest
and
of
you
it,
should get it.
Yeah, maybe it's just broken.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. Like, one or the other.
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in that deck, I would get King of the Feral Imps now. I think that's a card that has the, like, not that card's ceiling is probably like $2, but like you'll feel better paying 50 cents for 2 copies of that card now than waiting and then paying $5 for 2 copies of it later, right? Like,
Ryan Levine, penny stocks
as well. Yeah. And then
screw it, buy 4,000 copies on TCG.
No, don't do that. just get the ones for yourself.
Yep.
Don't do that. Yeah. A Baoku is probably the best card in this set. I think we're declaring that. And then the Crystrons, if you're looking for a pretty cheap deck that is fun and probably good, Crystrons are all common supers. That's a good pick too. We didn't even talk about the new Atlanteans. I don't particularly like them. I don't know if you have any strong opinions on it, but I don't really. So it is what it is. People like that deck. If you like that deck, then by all means, get those cards. I'm sure they're fun. And then the Mulcharmy. This is one that, like, Perulia ended up going up down the line and then kind of is back down to what it was. Fua obviously started out as $1 million, and then when it got announced as a reprint, it went down, but it's still expensive.
I think Perulia went down because of the Fua announcement, right? Like people are just speculating that they could go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But like I think the current one is like safe, but obviously the current one is less impactful in the grand scheme, right?
I would say like this is a card.
It is good, but it's not $100.
Yes.
Oh my god! I have to, Ryan. The Yummy. Look at the Yummy card real quick. Okay. You know what it is? It's supposed to be the like a claw machine pulling things up. It's like from Toy Story. It's like the claw.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Okay.
Has chosen.
Oh, they're in little. It's a gacha.
Oh, they're in little gacha cups.
Yeah, they're in little things. Okay, so my first thing, I thought they were in little, like, astronaut helmets, and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. No, they're literally in the gacha container. That's so funny.
Although the one little cat's ears are made of strawberries, so he is a dessert. I'm declaring he is a dessert, but he's.
Well, we've been to Japan. They did have the have the claw machines with food in them.
They did have this. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, yeah. So, I guess we'll talk about these archetypes later when we get more information on these. But oh my god, this has been the real time art reveal of this was an experience. I might put a link to the arts of these in the description or something, so somebody can at least look at them and not feel like we are losing our minds. Anyways, yeah. So the Molcharmi, I would say, probably wouldn't pick it up if it's as expensive as the other ones are right now. But if it's a little cheaper, like maybe like $30. Probably not bad, right? Just to have them, because when this card, like, if this card becomes really good, it will go up, right? Like that is what kind of happens with a bunch of these hand traps. Is like when there's not really a place for them, they go down, and then when you need them for your deck, they become $1 million. So if you intend to play competitively in the long term, if this card dips a little bit, probably pick them up. I don't think it can hurt, but yeah. So that's our thoughts on Supreme Darkness. Overall, I think we've had some incredible sets. The last like 4 sets have just been like unreal. So maybe a much needed reality check that not every single set in the entire game can be 50 broken cards. But I say that as Lion Insight is shaping up to be another absolutely broken set. So anyways, any final thoughts from either of you two?
Nope. All hail our Yummy overlords.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. I think this set comes out, you don't need to have FOMO, to be honest. And I think you can wait in terms of getting certain cards for sure. Like if you've already invested in cards and you feel like, you need to get the new ones, by all means, but don't feel compelled to dump your paycheck on pre-order pricing. Wait and see what adjusts and stuff like that. I feel like we say this and then some of the cards just go like insane because the set sucks and value has to come somewhere else, but who knows? I wouldn't like feel good about letting people buy a $100 Link 4 that they'll probably play only in one deck and they'll just play Ryzel anyway. So.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my friends. I'm like, well, are you gonna play this card? It's like, but I may as well get it. It's like, you should wait then. Everyone else will have the same thought as you, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah. Vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you can do.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time.
Adios.
Ta-ta.